What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I'm going to be breaking down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening to the market thus far and some very important information about what happened with NIO's earnings and what could play out for the markets moving forward. Before I break things down all this information, before I talk about what happened with NIO's earnings, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 6 free stocks. If you deposit $500 into the account, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. And putting in $25,000 or more guarantees you 70 free stocks, plus 12 months of level 2 data. The offer ends in just about 2 weeks from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with NIO. NIO managed to close up 1.5%, got a little gap up and tried to push up, tested our 50 EMA, came very close to it at $8. That was our resistance before it came right back down. Now, looking at NIO, the daily candlestick is looking a little bearish. There could be a drop to fill this gap before it tries to bounce again. We're going to be watching to see how the market also affects this, but I want to be very careful when it comes to NIO. And I think that this thing may be establishing like a higher low very soon. We might see this thing try to uptrend very soon as well. Part of that is because NIO ended up jumping 4% initially after reporting a more narrow than expected loss, basically. So it's not as bad as reported. And this is once again some pretty decent news for them. Investors are focusing on the EV, their ability to be more disciplined in their spending, and basically how close it could get to profitability. On Tuesday, they reported these losses in the third quarter that were very narrow, and it gave a revenue forecast below market expectations. Revenue was about 19.1 billion Chinese yuan, or $2.7 billion, versus 19.4 billion expected, so a little bit lower than expected, but their loss was actually not as bad as expected. It was a 2.67 yuan per share, and that's what we saw versus the expectation of 2.9. It was smaller than the 3.7 yuan per share loss we saw in the second quarter. The losses actually got a little bit more slim, and overall, better than expected EPS. Revenue rose 47% year over year, and the shares were around 4% higher during the pre-market. On top of this, they're going to be working on opportunities to optimize their organization, reduce costs. They did talk about how they could get rid of some employees because of it, let go of some of them. And on top of that, they are bearing some fruits. Their net loss of 4.6 billion yuan in the third quarter was down 24.8% from the second quarter. And that's once again a big improvement. On top of that, they cut 10% of their workforce last month. That was once again setting very fierce competition. On top of all of that, there's some improvement being made. They also anticipate to deliver 47,000 to 49,000 vehicles in the fourth quarter. That's going to be a 17 to 22% year over year growth, which is once again good news for the company as they're continuing to grow. The gross margin was 8% in the third quarter. That's actually down from 13.3% in the same period last year. So we are seeing some margins that are dropping a bit, but moving forward, the revenue overall is showing some growth, and we're going to be watching to see how they try to cut costs. So that being said, it was a decent earnings. They did a little better than expected on EPS. Revenue was a tiny bit weak, but overall, not bad, and it's good to see some improvements with strong guidance for Q4. So we'll see how Q4 goes. Looking at some more earnings, we have GameStop for tomorrow and just a couple of others. When it comes to data affecting the markets, an hour before the market opens, we have the exports and imports data. Then we have even more data coming out as time goes on. We have the labor cost data coming out in the morning. There's not really anything else coming out. We do have the 17-week bill auction coming out at 11:30. There could be some volatility thanks to that, but nothing too crazy. So tomorrow's not going to be as big for the data when it comes out. When it comes to the Fear and Greed Index, this is still on greed, not at extremes just yet. And then on top of this, NIO Day 2023 is going to be held on December 23rd. That's good news for them. We're going to be watching to see how the community grows and how this company improves. The volume was about 90 million, not bad. That's almost twice the normal volume we get. On top of this, the price-price ratio has bounced as NIO is gaining some strength. We're starting to see some improvements in the technicals. You can see right over here. When it comes to seasonality, we tend to be green about 55.8% of the time on Wednesday, and we tend to see more volatility during 11 o'clock a.m. and also towards the very end of the day. December tends to be a decent month, but January tends to be stronger historically. So let's hope for some improvements in the share price. With that being said, what do I see for the company going forward? I think that NIO is going to start uptrending soon, but first we could see a little downside. We might see NIO come down to fill this gap right back down to 7.3, then a bounce and a push up back to 7.5 plus. I find that very probable, and I think that NIO might end up doing that. But just to be safe, we'll have to see what other stocks are doing. As far as SPY goes, there's a possible head and shoulders like structure developing on it, but it's kind of slanted right here by its neckline area. So we might see like a little push up towards 458 or so in either rejection, or it could push up a little bit higher before it rejects. However, I just want to call out that SPY is very indecisive, hasn't been able to continue to break out yet, and it might just continue to remain sideways if we fail to get that breakout. So I think that we have resistance very close to 457, and we have support holding us up very close to 455. We've been stuck for almost 2 days in this range. We did pop a little bit more early on before coming back down. So we might just see it trade sideways for some time, look for a little like rejection, some sideways price action like this, then an attempt to break a little higher thanks to this like, head and shoulders like structure. There could be an attempt to go higher, but we want to see if we could get above 457.5. If it breaks that, then 458 is going to come next. Then we have this gap fill to come. We might trade sideways first and maybe get a pop and drop later on. But for now, I'm just eyeing a possible head and shoulders, and I just think that the market's very indecisive. For Tesla's also looking not super strong, but not super weak either. We got a bullish cross on the 4-hour PPO. Generally, when this happens, like right here, we tend to see it pop a little bit more. It could pop and drop, though. There's been times where that happened. So we have a double bottom like formation on Tesla. We're also uptrending technically. Tesla's been making higher highs and higher lows for the last, couple of months technically. And on top of all of that, with that going on, I think there's a good chance that Tesla might back test and grab some liquidity down here around 235, then bounce. You might see Tesla just kind of chop around this 240 area, but as long as we try to close to it, we're going to be in a decent place. So look for a little drop and maybe a pop as time goes on intraday, and then some sideways price action where Tesla closes somewhat in the green. I find that very probable for tomorrow. Apple is up 2.11%, might actually reject a little bit, kind of cool off on the RSI back down to 192. Then an attempt to bounce and just some sideways price action. I think that Apple cooling off a bit could slow the market down a little bit, but I don't know if we're going to get a bigger drop yet. Look for a little pullback, watch 192 and see if we bounce from there, so watch that very carefully. On the QQQ, look for rejection right here. It is attempting to break out on the 4-hour PPO, but don't forget that the daily is still not looking the strongest. So it's very mixed. I think that on the 4-hour time frame, it may make an attempt to try to go a little higher. It's going to try to break a little higher, and it might actually fail. So watch for 388s to be tested, a rejection, a move back down to 385, and a bounce there, and just lots of sideways price action for the time being. The market looks very sideways for now, and we'll see if the QQQ truly ends up breaking below 383.75. If we lose 383, I would turn more bearish, but I think that for now, it's going to pop, drop, and just kind of trade sideways between 385 and 388. And we might get a very flat today again. Nvda has attempted to push up a little bit, came up and then back down. The 4-hour is looking a little bit bullish, so it looks like it might actually push a little higher. And we have this gap up here, which is still unfilled around 467 on the 4-hour time frame. So Nvda might pop a little bit more. So I think we might see something similar where Nvidia pops a bit, helps the market push up, then comes back down. I could see it try to get back up towards 467. If that breaks, 472 is going to be tested. Then a rejection. So I could see a little more upside on Nvidia, and I think this might help the market push up a little bit. So there could be some upside, then a rejection still coming. That's pretty much it for now, though. So what do I see for NIO? NIO might drop a little bit more, come back down to fill its gap, retest 7.3, then bounce and look for it to push back up towards 7.5 plus and slowly make its way back up to the 4-hour 200 EMA. So I see a little drop coming to fill the gap below, then a bounce and a push up to 7.8 and a rejection. I think NIO might still hold up quite decently. I think that I was trying to base at $7 because I saw a lot of liquidity being grabbed here. So look for a potential bounce in NIO overall. I think that the structure is turning a bit more bullish. So look for a little drop tomorrow. It might drop a little bit looking at the daily candlestick. Watch for 7.3 to 7.25, then a bounce, and we'll see if NIO could try to break out from there. Overall, the chart is showing some improvement. It could start uptrending from $7. $7 could be our temporary bottom, and we'll see how NIO goes. Anyways, all right, guys, that's it for this one. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, and peace out.